the scars on my arms. How do I begin to explain what has become inexplicable pain? You see the tearing, slashing results of a girl full of faults. Yes, many would have cried, but I cut and didn't care if I died. I can't tell you what good would it do. So I cut up, I carve up, I cannot let you see why. Yet in my cell I lay alone and cry. The pain my children have never seen, because I wear long sleeves if they have been, or if I go to see them, it's long sleeves on a hot summer's evening. Ask why I didn't want stitches? I wanted big white scars. My scars say, fuck off, you bitches. Me and my multiple personalities split and divide into twos and threes. Leave me now, my grief is my grief. Misunderstood, my partner hung himself, and that was no good. You'll never know my anguish. Just stick by me. That's my only wish.
Now I'd like to welcome up Farah, who's been a wonderful partner for me in this whole project. So please give a big hand to Farah.
Thank you, Ian. It's been a pleasure and an honour to be a part of it. I'd forgotten the poem that I wrote until we met at Women in Prison again, and I said, oh, yeah, of course. And as one does, I completely compartmentalised that part of my life. I'm really angry sitting here and being here, and let's not call Bronzefield a nice place. Bronzefield is punishment and profit. Bronzefield is not a nice, cuddly prison where women are looked after. There are people here from Holloway, which is not a great place, but which is certainly a million times better and women's needs are actually met. We don't know what to do with women, with criminalised women. And I was sitting in a meeting with Marek, who's a friend, where Ken Clark spoke very, very openly. And he sat there and he scratched his head, and he had his legs out in front of him, and he said, by the time women get to prison, we really don't know what to do with them. They're in such a mess. But then he had this sort of great story about how when men stop reoffending, it's about when he was a criminal barrister, he said, men stop reoffending, they need just three things: get them a girlfriend, a flat, and a job. Well, why can't we do those three things for women? It's not that difficult. And for a very long time, people who, maybe with the best of intentions, maybe not, I don't know, have been using the voice of women in prison for their own ends, I think. I'm a part of Women Moving Forward, which is the campaigning part of Women in Prison, where we try and change the experience of women in prison, the real experience, not the sanitized, not the, what are we doing here? Is this like, 200 years ago in Paris when people used to sit in Dr. Schalke's little Thursday evening soirees and look at women and sort of listen to them and their hysteria and watch and be fascinated and go away and gossip about it? What are we doing here? What are you doing about women in prison? And we are all responsible. Crime is a two-way thing. Women are abused. I think it's 87% of women suffer domestic violence. Many have been raped really early on. Research that I've looked into recently shows that most women that end up in prison, and it's a fantastic number, I think it's 81% that report, but we think it's higher, have suffered some sort of domestic violence at an early age. We are all responsible. There's not one person here that can say, oh well, this is kind of removed. And it's exactly what you were saying. There are very few women that need to be locked up. You said something very powerful. You said, why is it always a man's voice that makes the room shut up? That people will sort of calm down. Because it's men who can actually make the change. It's men that have created the system. There's some very powerful men here tonight, like Colin Moses, like Arike, like Owen, and also Marek, who've worked in the system. You see how dirty and grubby and disgusting it is. And I'm proud to know these men because they're the people that can actually make a difference. We can sit here and struggle and be feminist and all the rest of it, but actually it's the men who need to understand the problems. And I'm really glad there are a decent number of men from the prison service here tonight. So having ranted a bit, I feel better. Sorry about that. What am I reading? What would you like to read? Oh, mine. Okay. Where is it? So I wrote this and forgot all about it. And I just want to say, I don't think it's forever. I think women will get empowered. My daughter she's here tonight. And I'm very proud she's here, because I hope that by the time she grows up, and she is fearless, nothing scares her. But I think by the time she grows up, maybe there will be more equality, maybe women really can have a voice and speak up. But until then, we need to use the system as it is, and call people to account, and get women on side, and make them understand that actually this is not a sexual thing, this is not a gender thing, this is just a wrong thing. Right, I can't find it, sorry, wait. It's 29, sorry. So this is called Take Up My Pain. I look at the clean skin on my forearm. The scars from 5 years ago are barely visible, but in a certain cold light, if I twist my skin in a certain direction, a filigree of tiny scars appears. It goes to the underlay of pain from a time I don't want to remember. All the pain of a life pulled down to the ground. With me sitting in the midst of it, the ashes of my former self scattering around me like leaves falling off a sickly tree. My heart's been crushed as if I'd been buried alive. I couldn't see a way out of it or a way through the pain. I tried the usual proverbs, the 2-line bite-sized phrases that sometimes offer relief, things about going through a dark tunnel and light at the end of it, or climbing the mountain of a problem 1 foot in front of another. And what's that thing about eating an elephant 1 bite at a time? But the mountain's so high and I can't even see the summit, and the elephant has taken on woolly mammoth proportions. The first cut isn't the deepest. It's just a slim slice of skin, a panting for a second, then blood. The first cut is always the hardest. Then it's instantly easier. I need the relief. I can earn this pain. I created it and I control it. Cut, then another cut. Cut, cut. It's not the relief of tears, which once they start their silent journey down the cool slopes of my cheeks, feel like they might never stop. It's a euphoric pleasure as sickness oozes out and takes over the action of my right hand, so I can't stop. And soon there are scores and scores, each firing up a smart red line of blood to some unseen deity for whom I'm doing this. Take up my pain. At first it doesn't hurt, it stings. It stings even more when salty tears fall into my selfish and self-inflicted scars. Then all the single signals of nerve endings and pain begin to combine, and they reach a climax and a crescendo. One big throbbing hulk of pain. And still I can't stop. I can't stop. It's a frenzy and a mess of blood and tears and pain and release. I keep cutting, but the cuts aren't deep. It's wrong to scar and damage myself, that I know, but it's the only thing left that I can control in this mess that I consider my life. And there it is, a bloody forearm, a memory of being alive and not deadened by this place, where the sunlight cruelly hits the bars with an ugly grimace. I watch blood ooze out of me, watch it settle and begin to harden, like letters from an alphabet I don't understand. The scars start to form rune-like and mysterious. Can you read what it says? Is it help me or leave me? Leave me to create a kind of pain that I can get through. This is finite. I know the sharp burning will end in a day or two as the wounds start to heal. The other pain, the darkness, it nestles like a snake in my belly, and I can't bear it because it's so far inside me. John Connor as well. Inside me. If I said I loved you, would it matter? Would it make any difference? Would you embrace me closer to your heart and whisper in my ear your voice carried on the wind? Would you make the pain inside me disappear? Stroke my skin with a caress of steel on the edge of a razor blade? That's it.
Unpredictable as ever.
Of course.
So, Star's piece is next. She's home in South Africa, and Shauna has agreed to read an edited part of the text that she wrote. So, please welcome back, Shauna.
Star. To me, self-harm can mean causing pain to oneself physically, emotionally, spiritually, or mentally. I have never physically harmed myself by using a razor or knife to cut myself, but I would say yes, I have harmed myself emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Cutting oneself is not something that is common amongst black women. Women in our culture are moulded from an early age to be bold and iron-like. Bold women are the ones who should always hold it together, never fall apart, never show weakness. Plus, a lot of issues which affect women are kept in secret from generation to generation. A woman's pain is something she should feel in a lonely corner, alone from the society. Harming herself by physically cutting herself will be seen as evil or weird. I would say that I self-harmed my being rebellious and promiscuous at an early age. I used sex as a tool for gaining acceptance from males. I was looking for the father figure that failed to protect me, and sex became my way to feel loved and protected by men. I ran away from home, dropped out of school, had multiple sexual partners. All this was damaging to me, emotionally, but I did not want to feel or think. Spiritually, I was not grounded. From the age of 12, I lived a life of sex, drugs, and alcohol. I was empty and needed to fill this emptiness. For me, prison was another consequence of self-harm. Before going to prison, I was in turmoil, emotionally from past memories that kept haunting me and creating negative behaviour patterns. I was blaming myself for so many bad things that had happened to me. Though I have never physically self-harmed, the emotions that I felt when I was in prison would have led me to do that. Instead, I cried a lot. I beat myself up emotionally. I was withdrawn and severely depressed. Prison can be a very scary place. This is so much fear and pain when you look around, especially for a first-time offender from a foreign country, as I was. Women around you are suffering in one way or another, and being locked in a confined space can drive one to insanity. Within this tiny space, one is haunted by so many memories, thoughts, regrets, anger, hate, and even suicide. Writing helps immensely. All those bottled up emotions I poured out into writing. I started writing all over again and discovered so much about myself and others. I was able to heal many of my past wounds and share positive thoughts with other women in prison. Writing forced me to think and meditate on things that I had been running away from, to look at myself honestly and analyse the reasons why not only I, but women worldwide self-harm. No matter how ugly the truth we face as women, still it has to come out. In my cell, I would look out of the window and allow the words to be formed on paper. I would look and listen to the stories of other women and write. I was learning so much from that and shedding so much baggage with each word written. Talking certainly helps too. Sharing thoughts and emotions is extremely good and healthy for the soul. Sometimes I need to hear positive thoughts from someone else to remind me of who I am and where I am headed. My heart really goes out to women who harm themselves physically because I can relate to the circumstances that can lead a woman to self-harm. I fully understand the desperate situations that women find themselves in. No matter what race or class distinctions, sometimes a woman can feel isolated, as if she is the only one who is facing a certain problem or emotional battle. I have learned that women's pain is universal.
The next piece you're going to hear is by Nicole, and what I wanted to do with the book is just to show so many women self-harm. I think sometimes we have an image in our head, that kind of woman self-harms, that kind of woman self-harms. There are younger and older women here, white women, black women, lesbian, stable women, heterosexual women, just many different women. And Nicole is a Jewish woman that I met in prison, and contrary to common thought, there are Jewish women in prison. Jewish women do self-harm, and I think it's a very powerful piece of writing, and so I asked a Jewish sister, Aisha, to read Nicole's piece.
I was always supposed to be the perfect daughter, with perfect grades, who was going to marry the perfect Jewish man, have the perfect 2.5 children, and a Mercedes Sports in the driveway. My parents were both concentration camp survivors. They wanted to give me and my brother everything, for us to have the perfect upbringing that they didn't have. They aspired to what they wanted me to aspire to. When I didn't get there, it was reiterating to them and to me that I was a failure. I don't fit the mould. I was told, you stick to your own kind. So I went to shul and Sunday school and had fun with the other Jewish children. I was 16 or a bit younger when I first self-harmed. I was raped, and they said I had got myself raped. I had an abortion to clean my body, and when I woke up from the anaesthetic, my father told me, it's over now, we'll never talk about it again. I found that incomprehensible. They never did talk about it again. From then on, I thought, I'm going to do it my way, but I still wanted their approval. I was desperate for their approval. I was in physical pain after the operation, and as long as I was in physical pain, I didn't focus on how I felt. Once the physical pain died down, I had to find a way to deal with what was going on in my head. I became very inward, and my parents sent me to psychiatrists, therapists, psychologists and counsellors. I could answer their questions, tell a little story, but it never got down to that pain. My parents see self-harm as the self-indulgence of a spoiled brat. They had to deal with horrendous things in the camps, and they had to learn to blank it from their minds, to be successful and supposedly happy. I couldn't blame my parents because they'd always been the perfect parents. That's what they told me. But there's a difference between them buying everything for me and me feeling that they are there for me. To me, self-harm means inflicting physical pain to alleviate mental pain. Ligaturing, cigarette burns, sabotaging myself, like ending up in prison. It is shameful, a deep secret not to be discussed. I can bury the pain, hide it behind a mask, keep myself busy helping others, but then something sets it off. Usually something my parents say or the tone in which they say it. And all the buttons are pushed. Jewish women wouldn't get raped, have an abortion, go out with Catholic boys, be 49 and single and in prison. I brought shame and embarrassment to my family, and it's a self-perpetuating circle of shame, pain, and no relief. But then I needed love, care, cuddles, empathy. Now darkness helps, and silence, and drink, and laughter delay the onset of pain. I hide my scars with makeup and baggy clothes and isolation.
Give a especially warm welcome to Tara.
Tears no longer drip down my face. As blood comes to the surface, a relief overwhelms. As another cut is made, more blood arrives.
As blood drips down my arm, tears no longer drip down my face. Feelings of a little power over my emotions. I am in control. I choose to make this pain. Just for a short moment, I forget the pain I felt before. So I think it would be great to end with the poem Universal Woman, which Katie and Farah are going to read between them, because I think that's kind of an anthem. So this is Bob. Shall I put it somewhere? Yeah, as long as you stay in the room.
Universal woman. A woman's pain is universal, a woman's tears are global. We love the same, we cry the same, we lose the same, we all settle for less of the same. We dream the same, we need the same, we need the same and want the same. No matter the cost, no matter the loss, we prostitute our minds sell our emotions short, sometimes at no price at all. We lay down and sell our very souls. We kneel and bargain with our enemies. We
hurt the same, we bleed the same, we fight the same battles, hiding the same scars, picking at the same scabs, whispering the same mantras. We laugh the same, though the sadness never leaves our eyes. We make the same promises that we spend our whole lives trying to keep. We stand accused by others. We lie the same, telling tales, tall tales that never age. We trust the same, falling prey as victims of abuse and misuse. We fall prey to vicious addictions and afflictions. It's all the same. We are all the same. Our struggle to survive is the same. Universal.
So we've got just a little bit of time left for any questions or comments, and why don't we just see if any of you've got questions or comments that you want to ask? Any of us actually, any of the different points that we brought up this evening. Do you want just a bit of time to chat to your neighbour and see if you've got a question, or do any of you have any that are ready? Is that a question?
Farah?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say I really appreciated Farah's challenge and her rant, because really what happened, Tara, when you went up to read, I think was what she was talking about, is that we can sit and we can smile and we can clap, but really it's the reality of the pain behind all these words that we're fighting for. And so I just wanted to say that I'm sure I and all of us appreciate the courage that you have to even stand up and speak the first words, and then to share what you feel on a truly authentic level.
I'd just like to make a comment about the effect that this evening's had on me. The person I can cope with my own. I was rather this wasn't filmed, if you don't mind.
Openness, it's a society that would make somebody turn on themselves, so it has to change, has to stop. So thanks,
I have a question. For Buxton, as someone who's been influential politically and internationally, how do you, and we heard Bobby Cummings the other day stand up and apologise for men all over the world, and I think it was one of the most moving things I've ever heard. Well, he just apologised for the way that women are treated. And I just wanted to know, and thank you so much for doing this event, and you've helped us and women and me in particular so much with everything. Thank you so much. But how do you think men in politics and in power can actually, how can we shift the paradigm? How can we enlist men to see it not as a problem, but as something they can engage in and be part of the solution?
It is a very, very difficult question, and I'll tell you, we are all selfish, whether we are men or women, and we always look into our Western own interests, and there are not many people, and I'll just give you an example. We all live 50, 60, 70, 80, 100 years nowadays. I just know somebody who's living at the age of 94 and he's still teaching in the mountains of Chitral. He's a British farmer major, and he went to India in 1947, and he's teaching on mountains of the border of Pakistan and Afghanistan. Major Lennon, you might have read about him. In The Guardian, his story was written many years back. And he never married, because every woman who wanted to marry him will ask him, when are you coming back to England? He said, I love mountains and I love people here. He started that school with 40 children. Now he has got 1,100 children, including 500 girls. And few of them are in Harvard and Oxford. I just want to say the people and all people live their lives, but some of the people live after their lives as well. And those are the people who can make change. Not many politicians of that level, but there are many people around this world who do that. So let's appreciate and bring them together to change this world. Thank you. I'll give you another. I don't know whether I will be given a chance to. I really, it is a great information. I've got grandchildren, I've got daughter, and my wife, when I married her, she was in that burqa you might have seen on TV in Afghanistan, when women cannot be seen any part of it. As soon as I married her, in a village of Pakistan, I asked her to remove this. And she was deputy mayoress of mine, for I have met her. My daughter went to Big Brother. I hope a lot of people will hate me for that, but she took it as a challenge. Her name is Benazir. She was named behind Benazir Bhutto, who was killed fighting for democracy in Pakistan. So there are great people in this world, and I just want to say that on 10th of September, on 9th, 11th, 10th anniversary, I'm inviting a Jew, a Muslim, and Tony Benn. I don't know how many of you know him, but he is coming to speak what experiences or what we can learn out of 9/11 and experience of last 10 years. So anybody who wants to come and support us, Google us, Third World Solidarity, and we are here to support you. Whatever your causes are, this is your platform, and we will try to do that. For I'm fascinating of this evening listening to. I'm not a poet, but I'm a great fan of poets because they can put something which I can't speak for hours on in just one sentence. And you are very powerful people. You should do more. You should write more poetry. Two of my children are poet, composer, and singer. They are hip-hop singers. So yes, I'm trying to make a difference with my family, and it should start from yourself, and then you can make a change. Thank you.
I'm going to use the power that I have in this role here to say, I mean, I just want to say something about what you said, because we have quite passionate discussions. I don't want to look to men for the answer, because I think some of this is about us as women and the power that we do have to make a change. And one of the things I feel so strongly is that, not just for women in prison, for all women, the day we decide not to go along with this, it will stop. And so I want to say that bit. And of course there are structural things that need to happen. There are things that need to happen in prison because it's problematic, it's not working, and there are things that could be done differently. But you can't change that without changing the society. So I mean, we're talking massive things here. I'm talking as a 60s and 70s feminist, and still a feminist. We're not talking small things, but it's also about noticing the power we have. It's not just men who have particular roles that we can look to, and that's partly why I do what I do, and that's what the book's about, is that if we say enough is enough, it couldn't carry on. So, I want to say, are there any other questions, because I know we're coming to the end of the evening.
Well, I just have one thought that's kind of struck, because the one thing, apart from extraordinary poetry, one that really struck me is when you said, it's not about gender, it's not about sex or politics, it's just wrong. And I thought, actually, that just transcends the whole lot. It's a very simple language, it's wrong. And Rachel, I was really interested in knowing, I didn't really know there was a movement for the abolition of women's prisons, and I think it's probably high time. Even a lot of this stuff that's been living now, it's 200 years old, it worked, it seemed to work in the society very different than we have now. But what is the relation of the society of women in prisons to any similar movements that are going on for men in prisons? Because it seems to me that the prison system is broken. And because, the men-women thing, because the community is so much smaller, is it possible that the way to fix the women's problem is by fixing the problem? Because then you're talking about a lot more people, and actually we all know that it's a numbers game.
I think to an extent, but for women in prison are different, and their needs are very different from men. So actually, in the world in which we campaign and we work within, the two worlds don't collide. And that's not to say that men don't have similar issues, but the specific needs are it is so different. Women need to learn to build relationships. I think it's something Farah said, but with a man, it's quite simple. On majority of men, it's quite simple. You have a point, a really valid point. Is it more about Who knows? I mean, one of the suggestions at the moment, one of the things being pushed forward by Kingdom is the rehabilitation revolution, emphasis on community sentences. There was a figure that came out yesterday on the Prison Reform Trust that they're just beginning to prove community sentences are more effective than short sentences. You know, that is the way in which the system will change, I guess, because it has to be done as a generic. But we will still fight for women in prison, you know, because, you know, it shouldn't exist as it does, you know, and that's who we are and that's who we work for. You know, we believe that, you know, what they really need is gender-specific services. That's what they respond to. So, a valid point though.
As a man who's worked in prisons for 25 years, my name is Colin Moses. So recently I led the Prison Officers Association. Prisons are broken, but no one, and I'm sorry, I'm not a great believer in Kenya, no one really wants to fix them. Because recent history, we've all just voted in an election. How many people came and knocked on your door and spoke to you about prisons? That's what this does, that's what this is about. You know, we're talking about recent history here. 1987 there was up to 1987 there was a separate female prison service. Somebody decided, oh, they're all the same, so we'll make it all one service. That's not a lifetime ago. Well, let's not touch on some of the self-harm we've heard about here. Unfortunately, we've heard some fantastic poems here. But actually, they don't actually go to the heart, and the lady who couldn't make a poem. When you go into a cell, and you find someone 16 and 17 year old who's put batteries inside their veins and pushed them up the side. Many people have done that in prison. That's not to shock you, that happens. It's not just about someone just, you know, we do not devalue self-harm. It's self-abuse. It's brought about by a system that is broken. Because it's a cry, not just for help, it's about, and that's what these poems are saying. When people swallow batteries, I just use batteries as an example, there's a lot of other things that happen, as many of us know. We have too many people in prison. We experiment, socially experiment on where we place female prisons. Someone just said earlier about Holloway. This is what the fifth largest city in the world with one female prison. There's one too many. Why have we built smaller units? Why do we ship people all over the country away from their families? Why do we have more mother and baby units in this country than anywhere else in Western Europe? Why is it we go and all watch a Soviet program, and everybody talk about, or go and watch this American program about having children in prison? We take a camera in a prison. There's a system that people write reports on, and they hold up a broken side of the tail. That's where we need to take the up on. We had an explosion in the 90s, in the late 90s, of female prisons, re-rolling prisons. No one murmured. No one made a murmur from the broad left to the broad right. No one said, we've suddenly had this explosion of prisons where we build, with all due respect to a private prison, you build a prison, purpose-built for women, all you're going to do is build some more, somebody to find and make a profit from. So I would say to you, think long and hard about the people we have in prison tonight, now, 10 to 9, we're locking up 4,000 women. Now, they ain't going anywhere, and many of them will be in it alone, self-harm. Well, we come to people back about our business and write some nice things. But I don't see a lot of MPs here. I don't see an emergency, just have an emergency debate on Mr. Murdoch. I don't see an emergency debate on this. That's where we have to drive it, enforce it. Not that it belongs to men, I take your point, it belongs to our society. It's wrong. Thank you.
Any last questions before we finish?
I just wanted to say, I work for National Prison Radio, and we operate a project in Style Prison, which is a women's prison near Manchester. And the lady that works up there recently told me that 2 members of staff have committed suicide in the last month. And I wondered what there is to help staff. Because that to me was quite shocking. Obviously there's a lot of suicides among them, but if the staff are feeling like that, what help can they give to women?
Can I answer the question, please?
Yeah.
No process for helping staff, and one thing you'll not see advertised is the amount of staff who take their own life or self-harm. Because if you self-harm, you declare yourself-harm, you'll be dismissed.
Yeah.
So it becomes a secret and inbuilt secret society. There's more prison officers now committing suicide than ever before.
Yeah.
When you investigate it, it said, is it related to the job? Unless you take your life in a prison, which the prison officer actually did last year, he took his life in a prison, putting himself in an office in a prison.
Yeah.
Didn't get no news. It will be related that had nothing to do with the job, those other factors, you know, broken relationship and else. A lot of people take their lives. Very little support, very little.
I just want to say, I remember when I first saw the book, and I know you were concerned about how people would see it. I was amazed. I think it's a precious, incredibly beautiful piece of art. And the question is for you. There's a lot of people here today. They work in all kinds of organisations. They might have a bit more money or a bit more sort of influence to help the book travel. It'd be a shame if it only stayed inside prison walls. I think it should be read and seen far beyond that by young people, women, men, translated into other languages. What would you like to see? You know, the wings that it has. Where would you like to see it go in the next 12 months? And what sort of help would you like from anybody here that might be able to help it reach there?
Fantastic. For me, primarily, the book is written for women in prison. And I want to see, first and foremost, I want to see that happen. And if it means that I go to every women's prison and offer some training for any personal officers who are interested, any safe custody officers, anybody who actually wants to understand how to use the book, that is what I want to see happen, really. I'm delighted if other people want to read it, but I'd like to see this book reprinted and reprinted until it's no longer needed. I mean, that's the thing. So I think it has, I'm glad when people say they like it and they're not women in prison who self-harm. But I wrote saying you to the women, and so that's what I'd like to see. I'd like to, as an individual artist, it's very hard to find the ways of linking up with other people, so I'm always interested, to make links with Women in Prison organisation or other organisations and see how we could move it forward together, because I know as a freelance artist I'm not going to be able to do that. But I am talking to some of the women's team from NOMS in a couple of weeks, because it's a difficult thing to push. It is hard to actually see how it's going to be used without added resource and commitment. And I know that as the cuts are made, it's going to be harder to do this kind of work, because officers are getting more and more stretched. So this might be a good idea, but it's going to fall off the agenda completely, which means that there will be more self-harm, I think, as things get harsher in prisons. So that's my one-point agenda for this book. But in a wider sense, I would like there to be a society where we didn't need prisons, we didn't use prisons to punish people, and we found other ways of dealing with people's stories and histories, which means that they've ended up in prison. It's a big agenda, but for the book, that's what I want. I'd like it to, even if it just ended up in the hand of one woman in one prison, I'd be happy. I don't want it left in cupboards, which is my fear. Very much part of the process. I just want to thank Mushtaq so much for giving us this space, the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Third World Solidarity, recognising this as an issue of justice. It's really important. Toots Chambers actually sponsored this event. Barnum Books, who published it, so thank you, Clive. Agnes and Imran, who designed my dream book, and the book that actually many women love, probably so what I've said. I'd like to thank Women in Prison for the space you've given me in the last few months and the work we might do together in the future. And mostly I want to thank the women around here, both women who are in the book and other women who've committed to standing up and speaking their truth or the truth of another woman. Because for me this is it's about. So I'd like us all to stand, actually, the women who actually spoke. And I'd like to a copy of the book if you don't have one and get anyone to sign it.